Amnesty International has released a report on the conditions of refugees trapped in Greece after Macedonia closed its borders back in March. Well, according to the report, more than 46,000 refugees are living in appalling conditions, which add to their fear and uncertainty. The report also blames some European countries for making the situation worse. Let's take a look at the report in closer detail. Well, many of the 31 temporary accommodations are severely overcrowded and there's not enough sanitary facilities. They're also concerned about the number of unaccompanied children, some of whom have been kept in police stations for up to 15 days until they were transferred to a shelter. Finally, Amnesty International is urging all EU member states to continue to support Greece in order to properly receive asylum seekers. Let's get more on this. Speak to Nathalie Savaricas, who is in Athens for us. Nathalie, you've seen these camps around Greece. Tell us, what is the situation like according to what you've seen?
Well, I'll tell you, I'll have to agree in many aspects, but let's not forget that debt-strapped Greece is completely overwhelmed and has to shoulder the bulk of this refugee emergency for the entire continent of the European Union, because it's the main gateway into Western Europe. Now, in over the 45 accommodation centers, if you like, we have three categories. We have the makeshift tents that have been building up at the borders, or actually, even at the port of Piraeus, for example. There are also former state buildings that have been transformed in order to accommodate the growing number of refugees, because let's not forget that despite the EU-Turkey deal, we still have dozens and dozens of refugees and migrants who are trying to get to the Greek shores despite, this new deal. And of course, at the end, there are also the hotspots, which were first reception centers and now have been turned into detention facilities. All of these places are completely overcrowded. There's a complete lack of coordination because it's mainly run by different NGOs who are kind of doing their own thing. There is no main body overseeing all this. There's a lack of privacy, and the refugees and migrants are completely left in the dark. I was speaking to them. One day the UN tells them that they'll stay here for just 15 days. A few weeks later they tell them they're actually going to be trapped here for 8 months. They don't know how to request for asylum. It's all very difficult, and the vulnerable groups like single women or children, are extremely fearful of exploitation, because there's no real lack of privacy. There's no privacy for them, or no special safeguards to keep them safe. And many were telling me that they're actually kind of scared in staying on in those accommodation centers.
Nathalie, the EU had promised to help Greece in dealing with this crisis. Has there been no sign of their help?
Well, essentially what the EU has been doing is been trying to gather money to throw at Greece. For the moment, there were initially 150 million pledged to Greece. Only 33 came through. There's an extreme bureaucratic mess going on, with the money really being delayed in coming through. Because of all this problems, the EU pledged to send in more money and actually give them directly to NGOs, as they're basically the main actors dealing with all this effort. And of course, the volunteer groups, which are made up by the Greek, ordinary citizens, just trying to help out as much as they can. But this also has been, dealt with much delay. So Greece, although it's undergoing its huge financial crisis, is completely, left to deal with this. The EU countries have been sending in money, but the big problem with all this is the relocation program, essentially taking refugees and resettling them in other countries. Just by way of example, we saw the arrival of Pope Francis on Saturday. He took back with him 12 Syrian refugees. That's more in one day than what 21 EU countries have done in the past months.
Incredible stuff. Nathalie, many thanks for your time. Nathalie Savaricas there for us in Athens.